Hey, it's Thomas the Guitar Guy from thomastheguitarguy.com, and this is I think the fourth video in our series on how to read guitar tab. So I'm going to start this one by playing the tab that we saw in the last video. I'm going to throw it up on the screen real quick, just in case you forget what it looked like. Alright, we're going to run through it now. Now when we do this, we're going to strum down, down, up, down, up, down, up. So that's the direction our pick's going to be strumming. We're going to go down, down, up, down, up, down, up. And then for the next bar, we're going to do the same thing. Down, down, up, down, up, down, up. Alright, here we go. Yeah, I guess really when we're playing this E minor 7 chord, we should play it this way so that our second finger's on top. That way it makes the switch to C add 9 really easy. You'll discover as you're learning guitar and tablature and learning to play guitar that there are sometimes different ways to play the same chord. And it really depends on the context of the song, but we'll get into that another time. So for now, for this one, for this particular tab, we're going to put our second finger on top. One last thing too, when you hit that last up at the end of each of those bars, you're just trying your best to sort of hit just the middle strings. We don't want to hit like up on every string because it just doesn't quite sound right. So when you're doing that up, just sort of go for the middle strings. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I mean, if you hit 2 strings instead of 3 like it's written on the tab, it's still going to sound pretty good. Okay, so let's go through this one more time. And there you go. That's all there is to it. So let's throw our next tab up and take a look at that. Alright, so looking at this tab here, you can probably see a few familiar things compared to what we saw in the last video. But there are also some new things going on here as well. We'll just kind of address them one at a time like we did in the last video. To start with, you can see this funny cherry looking thing up here. It's a quarter note or a taw for those of you familiar with music. But you can see this quarter note equals 100 up top. That is actually telling us the tempo of the song. In other words, this is what's going to give us an idea of how quickly we're going to play these notes. Notice, in fact, with the other videos, with the tabs we were looking at, we had no idea. Well, with the last video, we had the tab with the rhythm, so we could see how quickly each note was played compared to one another, but we didn't have sort of an overall tempo for the song. We didn't know if it was a fast song or a slow song or anything like that. But this is actually going to give you an indication of how quickly the tempo is for the song. If you have a metronome, and if you don't have one, I recommend you get one because they're very useful for learning guitar. You could set your metronome to 100, and then that will give you an indication of how quickly each beat is played. Again, you need to kind of have a deeper understanding of rhythm to really make use of that information, because if you look at all the different notes on this, you don't really have any idea of how many of these notes we're playing in any particular beat, at least not yet. So again, I would check out my videos on rhythm, and you can learn more about that stuff. But so yeah, we've got our tempo set to 100 up top here. Over on the left, we have our 4/4 time again, just like in the last video. Nothing much to say here. Again, that's more of a rhythm consideration. The top 4 is telling you that there's 4 beats in every bar. The bottom 4 is telling you that a quarter note is equal to 1 beat. And again, if you don't understand what that means, go check out my videos on rhythm. It's very straightforward. That'll give you a better idea of how this goes. But of course, I'm going to play this for you as well in the next video. So even if you don't understand rhythm yet, you don't have to worry about that. I'll play this little tab for you. It'll give you an idea of how it should sound and how you play it. We see a bunch of numbers: 5 7 5 7 7 7, and so on, just like in the last tab. So nothing different there. But notice we've got the rhythm, the stems indicating the rhythm, how quickly we're playing these notes, are attached right to the numbers. So this time we don't have any actual sheet music we can read like we did on the last tab. You can see the rhythms. It's a pretty superficial difference. I mean, the difference between this tab really and the last tab we saw as far as its layout is really that if you know how to read sheet music, the other tab might be more useful to you, or you might enjoy reading it more that way. I don't know many guitarists, first of all, who even can read sheet music, but the ones I know that do read it, they tend to prefer tab anyways. Me personally, I can read both, and I'd rather just read the tab, although it doesn't really matter because I can read the tab as I'm looking at the rhythm. So, like I said, it's a pretty superficial difference, but it's one that exists nevertheless, so I did want to point it out. Other than that, we've got a couple of other new symbols. If you look at the 5 and the 7 at the beginning of our tab, you can see that there's sort of a little arc over top of the numbers. This is indicating a hammer-on. A hammer-on is when you play the first note normally with your pick or your finger, with your picking hand, and then the second note, instead of actually picking that note as well, you're actually going to hit that fret with whatever finger you're going to use to fret it. So in this case, we've got a 5 and a 7. You're going to play the 5 with your first finger, and then instead of grabbing fret 7 with your third finger and then plucking that with your pick as well, you're just going to hit the string with your third finger on the 7th fret. This takes a little practice to get good at this, but if you hit it hard enough, the note will actually ring out without you having to use your pick, and it sounds really cool, and it's something you hear a lot in guitar solos and pretty much every style of music actually. Like you'll see them in pop, rock music, classical music even, everywhere. So understanding this hammer-on is definitely an important thing no matter what style of music you're interested in learning on guitar. And if we look at the next 5, 7, we can see that there's also a hammer-on here, but notice that there's another arc beside that that's linking the two 7s together, and this is not a hammer-on. This is sort of music reusing the same symbol for a different purpose, because it's the same number kind of attached by that arc to itself, so it's a 7 attached to another 7. Because of that, it's actually a tie, not a hammer-on. And the difference between a hammer-on and a tie is a tie literally does what you might think based on its name. It just ties the two notes together. In other words, you play the first 7 and then you hold it for the length of both 7s. Once you understand rhythm, this makes a lot more sense, but basically it makes a note longer. Again, like once you learn a bit of rhythm, that'll make more sense. But the most important thing to keep in mind right now is you're just playing that 7 once. You're not playing it twice. If we move a little bit over to the right, past those two 7s tied together, we see a 7 with a little arc over it followed by a 5. This is actually sort of the opposite of a hammer-on. This is a pull-off. And so what you do is you start with both fingers on. You have your first finger on fret 5 and your third finger on fret 7, and then you would pick with, you pick that 7 note, and then instead of taking your finger off and picking the 5, you'd actually kind of drag your third finger down and off of the string, and that will actually sort of act to sound the note that you're going to get, the 5th fret note. So in other words, instead of picking 7 and then picking 5, you're going to pick 7 and then pull down and release with your third finger, and that's going to make the 5 ring out. Again, really cool sound. You hear it all the time in every different style of music. So you're going to see hammer-ons and pull-offs all over the place. So that leaves us with two other important symbols we haven't looked at yet. You see the slash here between the 5 and the 7. This is indicating a slide. So again, instead of just playing the 5 and playing the 7, you're going to play the 5 and then you're going to slide that finger up 2 frets to the 7. In other words, you're going to pick once, press down really hard as you move up 2 frets. If you do this correctly, you should actually hear both notes even though you only picked once on the 5. So again, it's a really cool sound. Slides, again, you hear them in all kinds of different styles of music. And definitely an important skill to learn. I find people, when they try to play slides in the beginning, usually they'll hit the first note and they'll try to slide and it will not work at all and they can't hear the second note. When in doubt, press down harder on the fretboard. You've probably learned as you've started to learn how to play guitar that you have to press down pretty hard just to get some of the notes to ring out. We have to press down even a little bit harder just as you're sliding. If you do that, slide should turn out awesome. The last thing we're going to look at here is this curvy up arrow with a 1. This is indicating a bend. Again, this is sort of a different thing we can do to one of our notes. What you would do is you'd play that 7, and then you would actually sort of turn your arm and push your fingers. Well, you're not really, I guess it's partially. What you would do is you grab the 7, and you're actually going to play the note, and then you're going to bend the string up an entire 2 frets. The reason there's a 1 there, that indicates what we call a full bend, which is a 2 fret bend. If that 1 was instead a half, that would indicate a half step bend, which is a semitone or 1 fret bend. So in other words, what I'm really doing is I'm playing the 7 and then I'm bending the string, which will make the pitch go higher on that string, and I'm bending it enough so that it sounds like the string would sound if I played the 9th fret. When I go to play this in the next video, I will actually show you that and you'll see. But basically you're playing the 7 and then you're bending the string up so that it sounds like it, by the time you're done bending, it'll sound like where, sorry, by the time you're done, it'll sound like how that string would sound if you played at the 9th fret. Again, this is an awesome technique. You see it all the time, certainly in like blues and rock and roll and metal and even pop music and other styles too. Bending is, I'd say out of all of these techniques, bending is probably the hardest, but that's okay. It just takes practice like everything else. You know, don't give up, keep at it, and you'll eventually get it. But in the next video, I'm going to show you how to play this riff, and then we're going to talk about a few other cymbals, and I think that should probably wrap it up. Hopefully, if it doesn't, then I'll end up doing another video on top of that. But that's it for now, so be sure to check out the next video. Thanks for watching. Keep watching, keep rocking. That's it for now.